The gossip regarding you has escalated to such a degree that I truly need to make you pause for this discussion, as there are two distinct and authentic individuals who have been gossiping behind your back, and their words differ entirely from your assumptions. I refuse to remain ambiguous today. I will not offer you some vague energy about someone out there thinking of you. Instead, the divine energy is being exceptionally precise with me at this moment. It reveals that there are two separate individuals having distinct conversations, holding completely separate and varied views about you that are circulating out there. Once I finish explaining their exact statements, you will fully grasp why this video bears its title. Therefore, get your coffee or tea, wrap yourself in a comfortable blanket, and stay tuned through the end, because we are diving deep today, and it is truly astonishing. It is genuinely startling. Now let us begin. Before we dive into the specifics, I want you to visualize a scene because Spirit is presenting me with a visual metaphor that flawlessly illustrates the energetic current surrounding your aura right now. Picture a forest fire raging through an arid canyon. It originates from a lone, microscopic spark, a solitary word murmured in darkness, a single remark dropped within a text message exchange, and abruptly, the entire woodland is ablaze. The fire leaps from individual to individual and dialogue to dialogue, spreading with greater speed than you could ever manage to chase and extinguish. Furthermore, regarding wildfires, most individuals fail to comprehend this truth until it is too late. You cannot combat fire by introducing more fire. Each occasion you attempt to protect yourself, every instance you strive to set the record straight, and every time you endeavor to clarify the actual events, you merely contribute additional fuel, oxygen, and heat. The flames are indifferent to your motives. They simply burn. Consequently, the sole method for enduring a tempest of rumors is allowing it to exhaust itself, while you maintain your composure within the clearing, remaining completely unaffected, untroubled, and entirely at peace. This is because you possess absolute certainty regarding your identity, meaning no single spark, gossip, or warped narrative can ever strip that away from you. Hold on to that visual mental image. We shall return to it shortly. Here is the energetic reality unfolding around you right now, regardless of whether you perceived it. You have been the subject of discussion far more frequently than you acknowledge, spanning across more spaces than you recognize, and lasting for a much longer duration than you realize. I need you to truly absorb this concept because certain individuals among you fall into the category of thinking they mind their own business, avoid creating drama, and assume nobody thinks about them. Listen, I fully recognize that these factors are entirely unrelated. People do not require a justification to discuss you. They simply do it. Your name is spoken within kitchens you have never once entered. It surfaces inside vehicles you have never occupied. It appears across message threads and group chats that exclude you entirely. You have been discreetly omitted from late-night phone conversations occurring after everyone else has retired, consisting solely of two individuals speaking in muted tones and uttering your name as though it carries weight, which it indeed does. That aspect is what will truly astound you, because today we are moving beyond mere general chatter. The divine realm is channeling two distinct individuals, not a vague fog of gossip, but two real people, two actual human minds, holding two distinct viewpoints that diverge dramatically from one another. You are intimately familiar with the first person, whereas the second barely knows you at all. This stark contrast explains precisely why this message will resonate so intensely, as you are about to hear the exact same person portrayed in entirely contrasting ways by two completely different observers, with the objective truth of your identity resting somewhere amid those contradictions. Remain with me on this journey, as it is about to become fascinating. I will be entirely authentic with you right now. Two individuals chose to appropriate my identity and weave a narrative I never authored. I am well aware of what crosses your mind. Why should this hold any significance whatsoever? Why dedicate energetic focus to individuals who are transparently processing their personal unresolved issues by casting you as the central figure in their internal psychological drama? However, consider this principle. Your reputation represents the perceptions of others, whereas your character defines your true essence. Furthermore, I am not present today to offer defense for myself. Instead, I am here to reestablish control over my personal story, because we have all experienced that visceral gut-check sensation upon hearing a falsehood about ourselves, causing our stomachs to drop and momentarily making us question if we might actually embody the artificial version others constructed. You are certainly not that fabricated version. Allow me to describe these two individuals, and you will comprehend precisely why. Let us begin with the first individual, as their energetic presence is currently registering with the greatest intensity. This person formerly shared a close bond with you. They are neither a stranger nor a casual acquaintance, but rather someone who once possessed access to your personal space, time, energy, possibly your residence, your late-night telephone conversations, and your deepest confidences. This individual could represent a former friend, an ex-colleague who worked merely feet away from you daily for years, a past romantic partner, someone you nearly married, or a person intimately familiar with your coffee preferences, family complications, and the sound of your laughter echoing across a room. Additionally, I sense that this relationship concluded without achieving complete closure. It lacked a definitive and clean separation. There was no grand final discussion where all grievances were aired. Rather, it simply withered, fractured, or suffered an unvoiced disruption that neither party explicitly addressed, leaving unresolved business behind. That exact unresolved dynamic is precisely why they remain incapable of halting discussions regarding you. Here is what remains extraordinary concerning this individual. They speak of you continuously, yet this does not stem from a foundation of malice. I require you to absorb this clearly, as your instinctive reaction likely defaults to assuming the absolute worst. Am I correct? Indeed, the worst. Yet the reality is precisely the opposite of your expectations. This person interjects your name into dialogues entirely unrelated to you. An acquaintance might introduce an unrelated topic, such as a career prospect, a journey, or a dining establishment, and somehow, within moments, they seamlessly steer the subject back to incorporate your name, uttering phrases like, "Oh, that reminds me of," followed invariably by your name every single time. It is as though you serve as an anchor point they find impossible to abandon when evaluating every remaining aspect of their daily existence. Furthermore, whenever individuals familiar enough with this person to track behavioral trends confront them by asking why they reference you so frequently, a defensive reaction ensues. This individual grows peculiarly defensive, deflecting the inquiry or laughing it off awkwardly, while simultaneously failing to halt the habit because they simply cannot break it. In truth, what they actually express about you, marking the most intriguing turning point, is that they severely underestimated your capabilities. In their personal conversations, they communicate sentiments echoing phrases like, "I failed to recognize their genuine resilience," "I shortchanged them on proper credit," or, reflecting backward, "I felt somewhat intimidated by them, and I doubt I ever confessed that truth aloud." Do you fully grasp the implications of that statement? This individual, who historically held the psychological advantage within your interpersonal dynamic and occasionally rendered you feeling diminished, overlooked, or emotionally dependent upon them, has silently inverted the narrative inside their own consciousness. Witnessing your self-reconstruction following the dissolution of your bond deeply shook their foundation, continuing to rattle them presently in real time, as spirit highlights that a recent event, specifically occurring within recent weeks, thrust your identity back into their peripheral awareness. Perhaps they encountered your digital posting, heard a casual mention of your name, or experienced your presence crossing their thoughts spontaneously on an ordinary Friday, leaving them unable to dislodge the thought for the remainder of the day. Within that specific psychological instance, this person experienced profound discomfort, a blend of sorrow, lingering regret, and the jarring realization of, "Goodness, I genuinely allowed a true connection to escape my grasp, didn't I?" Consequently, observe the nature of the gossip this individual propagates and ponder how deeply bizarre and inverted it truly is. They inform others that you proved to be overwhelming, possessing intense energy, pushing milestones too rapidly, and demanding excessive emotional labor. Yet beneath that manufactured narrative lies the unvarnished reality. They simply lacked the stamina to match your pace. They were unprepared to handle an individual who manifested authentically, honored their verbal commitments, and refused to participate in superficial tactical games that render relationships deceptively simple initially while leaving them hollow over time. Your presence forced them to confront their personal emotional indolence, and rather than undertaking the necessary inner work, they dismissed your profound depth as excessive. That judgment functions not as an accurate mirror of your character, but rather as an open confession disguised as criticism. Moving forward, let us examine the second individual, as their profile will shock you to an even greater degree, representing nearly the exact inverse scenario. This person possesses virtually no genuine familiarity with you. Indeed, my impression indicates that your interactions comprise merely a handful of brief exchanges or casual dialogues. Perhaps your paths crossed professionally, at social gatherings, or within casual low-stakes online spaces on the surface level. They share zero historical background with you. Instead, they construct opinions externally from a distance, relying solely on passive observation rather than factual acquaintance. Yet, and here lies the astonishing element, they discuss you with a frequency nearly mirroring the first individual. Is that not peculiar? An individual possessing minimal knowledge of you allocating such a vast portion of their mental focus toward your life. Here is the underlying reality occurring with this second person. They are intensely captivated by you. In fact, their fascination borders on the uncomfortable, Elements of your personal demeanor and posture resist classification within their habitual mental categories for categorizing human behavior, driving them slightly frantic in both positive and negative ways. You enter environments and decline to perform according to social expectations. You maintain serenity where anxiety is anticipated. You remain silent when an explanation is expected. And you find humor in moments that make others excessively nervous. Furthermore, your style of listening, truly paying attention rather than merely waiting for your turn to speak, creates the impression among observers that you are psychologically analyzing them, even when no such intent exists. This second individual has observed every detail. Rather than approaching you directly to inquire about your nature, however, they adopted an alternative route. They began questioning mutual acquaintances instead. Initially, these inquiries appeared minor and innocuous. How long have you known this individual? Do they routinely behave this way? And do they appear emotionally stable to you? Gradually, however, their questions escalated in specificity. This individual essentially compiled an unvoiced psychological profile of you based on second-hand hearsay, utilizing their imagination to fill narrative gaps whenever verified facts ran short. The danger of utilizing imagination to complete missing information lies in human tendencies to envision outcomes far grander, stranger, and more dramatic than reality itself. Consequently, the gossip generated by this second person does not focus on specific actions you committed, but rather centers around an aura of mystery. Observers explicitly utter remarks such as, "There is an underlying situation with them that I fail to decode." They emit an inexplicable, strange energy, or they appear burdened by hidden depths. I need you to recognize that this critique functions as a compliment in disguise rather than an insult. Individuals make such assertions solely regarding targets possessing authentic substance, emotional gravity, and physical presence. No one allocates mental energy toward attempting to psychoanalyze an individual devoid of inner complexity. This individual's intrigue concerning you borders closely on obsession. Naturally, rather than admitting this reality directly to your face, they transmuted it into gossip, as spreading rumors provides a safer alternative to emotional vulnerability. It invariably functions that way. At this juncture, both narratives intersect, delivering a wave of chills across your skin. Both of these parties, the intimate figure intimately familiar with your background, alongside the distant observer harboring minimal acquaintance, arrived independently at nearly identical conclusions without coordinating with one another. That your character extends far beyond superficial appearances. The first learned this truth through arduous personal experience via years of intimacy, concluding in unresolved friction. Conversely, the second learns this presently in real time via objective observation, lacking the proximity required to uncover the underlying meaning. Two entirely contrasting vantage points converged upon identical, startling realizations. You deviate entirely from initial social assumptions, a shift that your surrounding environment senses intuitively, even when they lack vocabulary to define it. Presently, I must maintain complete candor regarding the uncomfortable aspects of these profiles, honoring my pledge to reveal the positive, the negative, and all nuances between without sugar coating. Have you ever felt as though society discusses an artificial iteration of your character that possesses no basis in reality? That precisely outlines your current situation. Not every commentary circulating about you remains flattering, and you deserve unvarnished transparency rather than having harsh truths masked beneath spiritual terminology. Alternative iterations of these accounts feature considerably harsher terminology. During defensive intervals, typically while venting to enablers who validate their perspective blindly, the initial individual has applied labels such as difficult, excessive, or overwhelming to characterize you. These descriptions stem from falsehoods, driven instead by the psychological reality that confessing their own miscalculation and subsequent forfeiture of a valuable bond proves infinitely harder than simply categorizing you as problematic. It represents an internal defense mechanism, offering an easier path to diminish your character into a flawed caricature than enduring the cognitive dissonance of their own errors. Similarly, during moments of personal insecurity, the second individual has occasionally reframed their fascination into unwarranted suspicion rather than authentic admiration. When you decline to offer lengthy justifications, withhold excessive personal disclosures, and maintain privacy regarding your affairs, rights granted to any rational individual, certain peers interpret your silence as sinister behavior solely due to their deficient emotional maturity required to tolerate partial ignorance. Consequently, isolated instances have emerged, lacking vicious intent or malice, yet manifesting as fleeting sentiments of distrust or suspicions regarding undisclosed information. I require you to understand the underlying truth there as well. Individuals harboring no secrets feel zero obligation to justify themselves merely to appease public curiosity. Furthermore, your refusal to perform your emotional interior for collective consumption does not constitute a red flag. Rather, it exemplifies a healthy boundary, and boundaries inherently discomfort individuals lacking them. They experience intense discomfort. It remains genuinely shocking how rapidly falsehoods travel, while truth struggles to prepare itself. Consider that dynamic. By the moment a rumor reaches your ears, it has already passed through numerous intermediaries, each appending personal distortions, assumptions, and psychological projections. This mirrors the mechanics of wildfires, where a lone spark igniting dry turf abruptly transforms an entire hillside into an orange blaze. Remember this fundamental principle. Truth requires no megaphone, demanding only time to prevail. Falsehoods ignite fiercely and rapidly, yet exhaust themselves quickly. Conversely, truth remains solid and immutable, resting quietly while atmospheric smoke clears. Your authentic essence, superseding the artificial constructs projected by these individuals, possesses vastly greater resilience than you recognize. Please absorb this critical insight, representing the core message Spirit emphasizes today. Today I find myself momentarily speechless. Both forms of gossip, the appreciative variation and the suspicious variation, originate from identical roots, functioning jointly as reactions to your inherent resistance to being easily read, fully contained, or accurately predicted. Society routinely proclaims a desire for authenticity and emotional depth within social circles. Yet reality demonstrates that most individuals tolerate only regulated, predictable doses of those traits. Encountering an individual boasting genuine experiential layers, authentic growth, and transformed identity induces profound disorientation. Disoriented people subsequently channel that cognitive disturbance either into admiration, as demonstrated by your first acquaintance, or into suspicion, mirroring your second acquaintance's current trajectory. Nevertheless, both behavioral responses validate identical realities. You register as genuinely authentic to observers, defying reduction into a simple, single-sentence summary. That quality remains exceptionally rare, serving directly as the catalyst keeping your name active within chambers you have never physically entered. When individuals gossip behind your back, it signals that you have advanced far ahead of them on life's journey. Allow that realization to anchor deeply as it transcends comforting platitudes to represent absolute energetic truth. Individuals genuinely devoted to their personal evolution, healing, and forward trajectory lack the available time and bandwidth required to dissect extraneous lives. The reality that both parties, the former intimate partner alongside the casual acquaintance, dedicate extensive mental real estate to contemplating, discussing, and decoding your character communicates volumes regarding their developmental stagnation relative to your advancement. You remain in motion, evolving and stepping into your power, whereas they remain immobilized, observing your progression from afar, while attempting to comprehend phenomena beyond their intellectual grasp. Furthermore, I must address a potent energetic current emerging presently regarding sheer exhaustion. If you mirror typical individuals I encounter, discovering that others gossip about you yields frustration alongside flattery, burdening you with supplementary self-consciousness and amplifying self-doubt prior to social interactions. I intend to gently challenge that reaction, recognizing that you have dedicated considerable temporal energy toward controlling your public perception and sanitizing narratives to preempt critique. Here rests the liberating truth for today. Controlling public perception was perpetually impossible. Society was bound to chatter, supply imaginary details for narrative gaps, and project personal insecurities, regrets, and unresolved psychological baggage onto your character, irrespective of your behavioral caution. Consequently, the primary dilemma centers on whether you will continue squandering energy, attempting to edit external narratives, or pivot toward reclaiming that vital force to simply embody your authentic self, allowing stories to land wherever they may. This principle extends beyond personal boundaries, applying universally to anyone subjected to misunderstanding, those whose names circulate across unvisited rooms, or individuals forced to endure the hollow sensation of discovering an unauthorized narrative written about them. External validation functions merely like leased property. In contrast, genuine self-love constitutes absolute property ownership. Leases expire and face revocation, remaining tethered to fickle emotional states, passing opinions, and fluctuating sentiments of others. Ownership, however, remains permanent. Claiming ownership over your truth, personal history, and inherent worth establishes a sanctuary from which no outside force can evict, dismantle, or compromise you. That outcome represents my ultimate aspiration for you, issuing temporary emotional validation contingent upon public commentary in favor of permanent, unshakable sovereignty over your self-identity. Stripping away external auditory noise reveals the foundation of both rumors. The initial individual's narrative centers entirely on personal regret over a missed opportunity, carrying negligible connection to your actions and reflecting solely their delayed realization of squandering a rare connection due to emotional incompetence. that burden belongs exclusively to their shoulders, remaining entirely detached from your obligations. You owe them zero closure, explanations, or engagement should they attempt future contact. An occurrence Spirit highlights as a distinct possibility in upcoming weeks. Forces are shifting, manifesting perhaps through direct communication, accidental encounters, or mutual contacts, introducing the topic unsolicited, requiring your readiness without descending into desperate pursuit. Allow developments to unfold naturally should they materialize. Conversely, the second person's fixation stems from personal intolerance toward ambiguity, as certain minds malfunction when confronted with unresolved question marks, demanding rigid categorization and systematic explanation, encountering a multi-layered, complex human being like yourself who refuses to distribute operational manuals for their personality short-circuits their cognitive framework. That psychological glitch remains entirely outside your responsibility to resolve. You bear no obligation to diminish your stature or simplify your identity, merely to enhance the comfort levels of observers. Their distress regarding partial comprehension reflects their internal limitations, rather than structural flaws within your character. Consider this concluding focal point, marking the transition where whispered narratives shift emphasis from their psychological state toward your authentic essence. Every circulating rumor, encompassing masked admiration, suspicious curiosity, and critical regret, converges upon a central reality. These dynamics orbit a singular unspoken truth, unarticulated explicitly by either party. They sense intuitively that your development extends beyond mere future potential. You are actively, visibly, and undeniably evolving into a consolidated, resilient iteration of your authentic self. Observers detect this profound internal shift, even when vocabulary fails them. That underlying evolution fuels the entirety of this chatter. The discourse never stemmed from behavioral errors on your part, nor did it constitute ordinary neutral gossip. Instead, it represents real-time human reactions to witnessing an individual undergo profound metamorphosis in their presence, without possessing the maturity to process it. Take away this definitive insight today. Gossip regarding your life will persist. I refuse to offer false assurances that this broadcast will instantly silence detractors, as reality operates differently. Crucially, once you grasp the mechanical forces